Iowa State has just released Jimmie Rogers' first speech in front of the team he'll be sending out on the field next season. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you. It is not what I expected at all.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the #1 sports podcast network, thanks to you. I am your host, Nick Marovets. Thank you for making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Be sure to hit subscribe down below so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. As we start off today's episode talking about Jimmie Rogers and his first speech in front of the team that he has assembled. What are my thoughts on it? Am I pumped up, ready to run through a brick wall? Potentially disappointed? What kind of pillars will this team be built on from what we've seen? We'll talk about all of that in the first segment. Then in the second segment, pretty much live reaction. The Big 12 is releasing the schedule. We'll take a look at what Iowa State has to face, what order, where the buys are for next season. Can't wait to dive into that. And then finally, to round out today's episode, the men's basketball team found a win. They defeated UCF last night, and a couple key things that I really want to talk about on that front, so stick around for that. Of course, cannot wait to dive into everything today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So Jimmie Rogers gave his first speech in front of the team that he has assembled on Monday, okay? And then the Iowa State it's Iowa State Athletics or whatever, football, released the video, okay? It was a 1-minute clip, little cut up of the speech. Let's be very upfront with this. They did not release the entire uncut, unedited version. So before we get into all of my thoughts on this, I know this is not the exact speech and how it went down, okay? I also understand that it's probably edited to have a little bit more punch, a little more go to it. You're not going to release something that's really, really slow. So there is something to be said about it. There's positives and negatives to a clip like this being released. But Monday the 19th, probably the first day that everybody's on campus, right? The 20th is the first day of classes. So yesterday, the 19th, probably the first day that everybody is on campus. Reasonable to assume that. And on the video, it says 5:06 p.m. So this is pretty much right away in the meeting. I don't know what else they covered in this meeting, but this speech kind of seems to me like it was the first thing that Jimmie Rogers said to the entire team that has been assembled. Obviously, he's talked with all the players individually, their families, but to the whole team, it seems like this is the first thing that Jimmie Rogers said to everybody. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you, okay? This might be a hot take. I was not particularly moved by this speech, but let me get into why that doesn't necessarily matter and why I might be one of the only people that felt that way, okay? So he starts off with talking about there are 229 days before stepping on a field against SEMO, right? And there is definitely some truth to the fact that you can buy a candy bar with the amount of days that are left between now and the first football game. So we have a lot of time. So I'm kind of torn on that front between, like, we have all this time. It doesn't really matter what he says right now, and the fact that this is the first time he's really talking to the whole team. Keep that in mind as we roll through these. And I'm just going to read off a few of the quotes that stuck out to me. This is literally a 1-minute clip, so this is basically everything, give or take a few filler words. But as every coach in here, our job is to take your dreams, make them ours, and push them into reality. He said, I want us to be known as, when people turn on the film, watch TV, or spend hard-earned money to watch you play, a spirited, disciplined football team that plays with each other, for each other. He said, I want us to have a certain makeup to play with a certain level of physicality and mental disposition that's unmatched. And I would tell you, and this is a separate quote, I would tell you more than anything else, when people get done playing us, not just say it, but when they watch us, man, you better get ready to play Iowa State. A lot of the right things I feel like were said here. Okay. When I'm reading off these quotes, I feel like the sentiment is absolutely there. And we'll talk about kind of the pillars that it sounds like this team's going to be built on. But when you go watch the tape, me personally, this felt a little bit like when Robert Saleh on Hard Knocks told the Eagle and the Crow story. If you haven't watched that, you should go find it. It's on Twitter and it's on YouTube. And it had this feeling of like he's reading off a paper. Not saying that Jimmie Rogers was reading off his paper, but because Saleh was for sure. But Jimmie Rogers was referencing it a lot. And I just hate to, kind of be that guy that's not like 100% bought in. But that first speech, it felt to me just not as genuine. It felt to me like it was a little like prepared. Like, obviously, you want him to come in and to have an idea and to know what he's going to talk about. But he was glancing down a lot. And maybe I'm being too critical. Okay. But we do have to realize that, yes, this is the college level. These are not the pros. But the players can sense, they've got a special sense to them. Okay. And if they're not going to be completely bought in on what coach is saying, that's going to be a problem moving forward. So I'm not saying that Jimmie Rogers had a terrible first speech or that he didn't connect with the players. I'm just saying, for me, it really didn't connect. There wasn't that, holy cow, I'm ready to run through a brick wall. It just wasn't there for me. Now, keep in mind, very much edited, clipped up, thrown together, took a few quotes out of there, give it to the population. Like, this is kind of what our coach is about. That's how I'm looking at this. It is not important for me to be motivated by this speech, especially considering the fact that it is so cut up. It is important for the players in that room to understand what Iowa State football will be moving forward, what's expected of them, and then, motivation 229 days away from the first game is, you could even debate on whether or not that is necessary. But if it's, thrown in there, that's a good thing. Right? Everyone's excited. Saw some guys taking notes. We like to see that. Everyone did seem pretty bought in. Not a whole lot of shots of the crowd. Okay, let's just call it how it was. But certainly the shots we did get, it felt like, okay, they're definitely tuned in. They're ready to go. And another thing that I wanted to throw in here is that this is not a unified necessarily team. We kind of are looking at, it's not the land of misfit toys, but just a large conglomerate of players brought from all over. And obviously the transfer portal is going to be like that. All teams are going to be like that as a result of the transfer portal moving forward. But for Iowa State especially, it really feels that way because of the amount of players that were lost and the amount of players that are coming in this new regime. So super important point to note there, that is I think a portion of where he's coming from on this. It's tough to really start off, with a team that has been compiled in that fashion. I'm not too worried about this, to be completely honest. And at the end of the day, it all works out if you win. Nobody, this is not a speech that everybody's going to look back on and say, wow, he failed. I can't believe that they're winning, or wow, he failed. That's the reason they're losing. That's not even what this speech is. But at the end of the day, either way, it literally does not matter if Iowa State wins games. That's what it comes down to. And I want to reiterate, I hate to be the guy that's like, man, I'm just not impressed by that. Everyone else that watched it seemed to be completely bought in. And I'm just not going to sit here and lie to you and say, man, I would run through a brick wall after that speech. I wouldn't have. So I'm not going to say that. But I also realize that, for one, it's not about me running through a brick wall. For two, it kind of comes down to setting the expectations as opposed to getting someone ready to run through a brick wall almost 230 days before their first game. And three, it's all cut up. The ultimate sentiment can get lost in a chop up like that. So for me, the biggest takeaways from this were, one, they're going to play physical. We need to play with a certain level of physicality and mental disposition that's unmatched. Okay, so they're going to win up front. They're going to be very mentally sound, very tough, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Disciplined, right? That's how it feels to me when he made that quote. He also says here, I want to tell you more than anything else, when people get done playing us, not just say it, but when they watch us, man, you better get ready to play Iowa State. I was honestly hoping he was going to say they're going to feel it. They're going to feel it after the game. I'm sore. I just faced a really tough team. That's not what he said. Nonetheless, though, obviously showing up on film, very sound through all phases of the game. Really a lot of effort. If you're gonna play Iowa State, you better be ready to give your all. And honestly, that's really what it comes down to. Spirited, disciplined football team that plays with each other, for each other. The spirited side of that was the most encouraging, exciting point of that. That was where I was super pumped up. I want to see a team out there that's having fun, right? When you talk about TJ Otzelberger and Iowa State basketball team, that's been a point that they have been kind of driving home like crazy, is the concept that they're playing for fun. They're playing out there, having a good time, and the wins and losses will kind of come and go as they do. And so I think if the football team adopts the same mentality, they're spirited, they're playing with each other, for each other, that is a good thing. So all of the pillars are right there. And I like where Jimmie Rogers' head is at. Just for me, personally, since I'm the one here in front of the microphone, I'm going to say I wasn't blown away by it. I just wasn't. But something has just crossed my desk. I've got something new here. Iowa State's football schedule has just been released for next season. Let's talk about it coming up right here after this. First, a word from our friends over at FanDuel. College football playoff has come and gone, and now it's time to talk about some NFL playoffs. FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs, because right now, through these NFL playoffs, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. I personally love that you can ride with the favorite. You can roll with the underdog, whether or not you're feeling somebody who's going to control the matchup or someone who's going to upset that super dog favorite, whatever you want to call it. You can pick either way, or you can build a parlay around the players and the moments that you think are going to decide the game. Then you just apply that profit boost and you can go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. So FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. Visit FanDuel.com and get your NFL playoff profit boosts every game day. We just talked about how Jimmie Rogers' first speech went. I can't wait to dive into this. Is basically breaking news, Iowa State's football schedule for next season. But first, I just want to thank you for making Locked On Cyclones your first listen of the day, making it your first watch of the day, making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Literally could not do it without you guys. Just want to make that very evidently clear. I'm aware of that. You guys are the best. And just with that being said, I want to let you know about the Everydayer Club that we're doing. If you haven't already, go check it out. It gets you access to an ad-free audio feed wherever you choose to listen to Locked On Cyclones, and it gets you an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server. It's a great opportunity. You can check out more information below in the description or in the show notes, whether you're watching or listening. And there's also a link on screen. So shout out to every single one of you guys. We've got the schedule. It has been released. Iowa State will play their first game on September 5th against SEMO at home. Okay, let's walk through the rest of this schedule here, because I'm not going to lie, actually. First impressions, first initial thoughts. I don't know if I love this. I'm going to be honest, but we'll walk through it. And we'll see kind of where I land at the end of this. Iowa on the road, 9-12. Okay, so 1 week after SEMO, and then 1 week after that, they'll play Bowling Green at home. That whole thing, totally. We're going to just skip over that for now. They're playing Bowling Green this next year at home on the 19th. Then on the 26th, they will play Utah at home. Okay. We've now got 3 of the first 4 games at home for next season. And then their next game after Utah at home will be West Virginia at home as well on October 3rd. And so as I pull up the schedule here, I believe that is the same. Yes, that is 1 week. So we go with the first 5 games without a bye. Oh, there it is. Perfect. And then they'll play BYU at BYU and then their first bye. Okay, that makes sense. So SEMO at home, Iowa on the road, Bowling Green, Utah, West Virginia, all at home, and then BYU on the road. So of their first 6 games, 4 are at home. Really front-loading that schedule. Then they'll have a bye, and they're going to need it. Boy, after 6 games, obviously BYU at the end of that, they're going to be a tough team to face. Then they'll play at Arizona coming off the bye. So they'll get some time at home, get some rest in their bed. Then they're back on the road at Arizona in 10/24. 10/31, I believe that's Halloween, right? Isn't Halloween the last day of October? They'll play, Oklahoma State at home. I almost said at Baylor. That's their next game. They'll play Oklahoma State at home 10/31. And then they'll face Baylor on the road. Then they'll face Cincinnati at home. Then they'll face UCF on the road. And they'll face Kansas State at home. So after the bye, Iowa State goes very much like an alternating checkerboard style here. Arizona on the road, home, road, home, road, home. 3 road, 3 home to finish the season, alternating between away and in Jack Trice. So my initial thoughts of this schedule, as far as homes and aways, I don't necessarily hate it. You don't have any major road runs here. You're not playing, 3 or 4 games on the road in a row. That can be very difficult, very taxing, mentally taxing on players to not be in front of your fans. Obviously, you see that more in basketball than you do in football, but Iowa State I mean, if it weren't for playing Iowa on the road, they would literally start their first 5 games at home. So very good start there. Obviously, getting the first 2 conference games at home is going to help. And it being Utah and West Virginia, they have a very real shot if they beat Iowa, which like I'm going to chalk that up to 50-50 basically every single year. So let's say they get that one of going into the BYU game on the road, their first road game, first honestly real test based on what I'm seeing from Utah and West Virginia as of right now, being 5-0. That's a pretty good start to the season. And under Jimmie Rogers, obviously first time head coach at Iowa State, that would be a very good start to the season. BYU are going to be a challenge, but then they have a bye. Okay, they're going to be a little bit beat up by that point in the season. Obviously 10-10, right? You go for a whole month, basically, a little over a month of just straight football, pounding the rock. Honestly, with the way that Iowa State's going to run their, kind of game, it sounds like it's going to be challenging to go all the way to 10-17, but then they get their bye. And then they'll face Arizona on the road. I think that's a winnable game. Arizona does look pretty good. Oklahoma State at home. Very glad we get that game at home. Very glad we get that game at home. Baylor on the road. Not too worried about Baylor, honestly. Cincinnati at home. Glad we get that one at home. UCF on the road. That's an okay road game as well. And then Kansas State at home. So, to be optimistic here, this is a very good, as far as what teams you're getting at home and on the road, we've talked about that, but scheduling order, very solid. Very solid. I like the fact that we're jumping back and forth. You go have a bad game at Baylor, you lose one at Baylor, not the end of the world. Why? You're coming right home to face Cincinnati. So you're not going to go, from Baylor to UCF. No. You come right home. You're good. Cincinnati, you get in front of your fans. Then you go out to UCF. And then you finish the game or finish the season at home as well. My just initial thoughts on this, that is a phenomenal schedule. That is about as good as it could have gone for Iowa State, in my opinion. Obviously, the bye situation is not my favorite, just personally. But I think that when you look at the home versus away order, it's a win. It's a win. One bye in there is a little struggle, a little bit of a struggle. So they'll play 6 games, they'll have a bye, and then they'll play another 6 games. Right down the middle, that's good. That is good. But I would have liked, a second bye. I don't think that's the end of the world. I haven't taken a look at any other team's schedule. Actually, I believe this is Arizona State's. So first thought, looking at theirs, they don't have their bye marked out, and I'm just not going to take a look too deep into that. But this is a very gettable schedule for Iowa State. That is my first initial thought. And here's Utah's. They only have one bye as well, so we must have only moved to the one bye. I didn't get that memo. But considering that if that's how it's going to be, you get your bye right in the middle of the season, I'd much rather it be there than, early on in September. Just my opinion. So I think Iowa State got super lucky here as far as order. And this is, I know it's Jimmie Rogers' first year. I know a lot of people want to say that he's just not going to get, to 8 wins to 9 wins. I've thrown out, I believe, the 8-win mark. 7 wins, I think, is much more realistic. But considering the order, you could start off the season 5-0, getting Utah and West Virginia at home, coming off the non-con. Let's say they even lose to Iowa. All right. I think this team can rebound from that, honestly, because there just really isn't a lot of Iowa State loyal. There is some, but there's a lot of transfers on this team. So you lose to Iowa. All right, fine. We move on. We beat the brakes off of Bowling Green. And then they go into BYU at 4-1. That's a losable game. Okay. I will admit BYU is going to be a tough opponent, but then you have a bye. You come off the bye, you face Arizona. Yes, it's on the road. Coming off a bye, extra prep. Very gettable game there. That's about as good of a schedule as Iowa State could have gotten. Just in my opinion. I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know down below. Obviously of Jimmie Rogers' speech, but then also of this schedule. That's going to do it for football talk today. Let's pivot over and talk about basketball, because a huge win for Iowa State over UCF last night. Joshua Jefferson showed out big time. We'll talk about that coming up right here after this. Iowa State found a way to get the win they really needed against UCF at home on Retro Night yesterday. Iowa State 87, UCF 57. Talking about here at Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And boy, we got a lot of stat lines to point out, a lot of players to highlight. But I think the biggest takeaway right off the bat, this was an angry Hilton game. This was a much needed kind of bounce back revenge game for Iowa State after playing the last 2 games on the road at Allen Fieldhouse, at Cincinnati. Challenging environments. You're the number 2 seed. You're being hunted. Everyone is shooting their lights out against you. And that, I'm pretty sure that's just Iowa State destiny. That's just kind of how it works. Whenever Iowa State faces somebody, they're going to shoot greater than 40% from beyond the arc or whatever. I don't know what the numbers were, but for the Cincinnati game. But my point being, they shoot lights out every time against Iowa State. And then you come back home and now you face a UCF team. What's going to happen here? Kind of a season defining game a little bit. 2 games, you lose 2 games in a row, really not the end of the world. We talked about this. You lose those 2 games, mid-January, mid to early January, has almost no effect on the rest of your season. Provided, in theory, those are the only 2 you lose. It's pretty rare for a Big 12 team to go undefeated or 1 loss or 2 loss on the season. You lose those 2 and that's it. You've had a great year, right? So we don't need to push the panic button, but we do need to be aware of where Iowa State is at. Where is Iowa State in the schedule? Where is Iowa State if they drop a few more? You need to get right. You need to get one here, and they did against UCF, holding them to less than 60, scoring nearly 90, a 30-point win for the Cyclones. And as far as looking at your box score, really solid, honestly, a very, very solid box score here. Milan was your leading scorer with 20. Joshua Jefferson added 17 of his own. Interestingly enough, had 10 rebounds and 12 assists. And if my math is correct, that's a triple-double. That seems pretty good. Wait, haven't we said that this season? Haven't we talked about Joshua Jefferson getting a triple-double already? Oh, we have. That feels like maybe a big deal. Yeah, Joshua Jefferson, if I'm correct here, is the only Iowa State player to ever have 2 triple-doubles, not only in a season, but in his career. So that, I don't know, is that good? You tell me. That feels like maybe something that's worth mentioning there. Shout out Joshua Jefferson. And then on the Milan front, before we get to the rest of the team, he went 4 of 8 from 3. That's 50%. And his 3-point percentage actually went down. So, Iowa State been having a phenomenal year in this game, played very well as well. 4 of 8 is just ridiculous. And TJ Otzelberger talked a little bit about the Milan Momcilovic thing as far as, shooting those threes and how that all goes. And I'll talk about that in a second. But let's talk about the rest of these players. As far as the starting 5, Killian Torrey had 12. Blake Buchanan had 11. And then Taman Lipsey added 5 of his own. Jamarian Bateman off the bench shot 5-11 from the floor, had 12 points. And Dominicus Plata had another 8. So, and then Nate Heisey had a bucket as well with 2 points there. So, really pretty even distribution of points is kind of how I'm looking at this. Obviously, a great night from Joshua Jefferson. We'll talk about Milan and kind of his impact on the game in a second. But a name that I really wanted to highlight, and we've done this before, is Jamarian Bateman. This guy worked up to 18 minutes in this game. He needs to be at that 18 to 25 minute mark, man. In my opinion, he is lightning in a bottle for this team. He only went 1 of 5 from beyond the arc, but man, he can shoot it. Man, he can score. And as TJ Otzelberger talked about, like, he wants to do the right thing. He has the energy. He's in there day in, day out. Daily habits are ridiculous. Like, he's the right guy. And we talked about, obviously, Killian Torrey and some of the other guys like Blake Buchanan that are coming in, which I know he's a transfer as opposed to a freshman, but boy, is Otzelberger's talent kind of evaluation process just been spot on with this team. But I think bigger than that, when these freshmen come in and they have adopted the mentality right away, I think you kind of reward that a little bit if you're me. And I think that obviously with Bateman in particular, he has been the spark that Iowa State has needed a few times this season. Not saying he was necessarily that in this game, but there have been a few games where it's like, man, we just can't find anything. And all of a sudden Bateman goes 3 for 3 from beyond the arc. And all of a sudden Iowa State's back in it. So worth mentioning there. Taman Lipsey with 5 points. Casuals are going to say, wow, that he did nothing in this game. Where's he been? It's just not nowhere near his point average. You and I both know Taman plays, right? We can just move on from that. Momcilovic, though, TJ Otzelberger made a very good point. I feel like an interesting point in his post-game presser talking about how Milan, when he's shooting, he's shooting like 55%. And I am paraphrasing Otzelberger here. He said, he's shooting 55%. So when Milan's shooting, he's got the initial closeout and he's got a second guy coming. And when Milan shoots the three, it's got a 55% chance of going in, which is ridiculous. You have actually, he didn't say this, but you have less odds of hitting a heads on a coin flip than you do of Milan making a three, which is absolutely insane. But regardless, he's shooting that three. And if he makes it, we get 3 points. If he misses it, now we've got a 4-on-3 rebounding opportunity because they sent 2 out to go try to stop the three. And then if you score a bucket there, that's an easy bucket. So Milan's shooting results in Iowa State having a phenomenal chance of scoring a bucket. Either he misses and the rebound is right there, you put it right back in or move the ball back around or whatever it is, or Milan just makes the three and you get 3 points and you move on. So, it's very easy to look and say that's the play. Let's just have Milan shoot it 100 times. And I'm just going to fall into that trap and say, why don't we? Why don't we have Milan shoot it literally 20 times from beyond the arc a game? Personal opinion, that's just obviously that's not going to actually work out. It's probably not the smartest play there. But, I mean, my goodness, if he's shooting over 50% and he can hit 10 threes or right around that 10 out of 20, I see why Otzelberger said shoot more, make more, right? Like, he's not going to shoot 4 of 20 if he was going to shoot 4 of 6. He's going to shoot closer to that 10, 11 out of 20. So let Milan shoot it as many times as he possibly can is kind of my mentality there. And then as far as the rest of this game, the rest of how this team has kind of looked, it's so easy to get tied up in this game versus the Cincinnati game versus the Kansas game. And I try to do this as little as I can with football because it's one at a time. Basketball, even more important because you're playing at crazy different environments. Players are in, out, the rest factor. You play so many games, more games than football. I mean, right now Iowa State is 17-2, which is a really good record, first off. But I mean, what did the football team go? Right, 8-4. So we've already surpassed that. We're like halfway through the season. So a lot of games to play. And my initial kind of thoughts after the Kansas and the Cincinnati game were like, this team needs to find that spark. They need to find that effort back. And I am not going to sit here and say that we fixed it, right? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to overreact and say a 30-point win over a UCF team you hold to less than 60 points. Well, they're good now. They don't have to worry about anything. They've fixed all their problems. We're ready for March. That's not how I see this at all. I want to see a bunch more games like this in a row. You can have a down night here and there, a couple close games. But if you are the team that we thought you were, this should be the standard. This should not be a one-off. The last 2 games, not a good indicator. I want to see a little bit more, pep in the step, getting back on defense, pushing the pace in transition, points off of turnovers, creating turnovers, all of those kinds of things. Felt like Iowa State got away from that the last 2 weeks or 2 games, excuse me. It feels like this was a better step in the right direction. Obviously a major win, get back on track in conference play, win at home too, rejuvenizes everybody. That's great. But we can't get lost in the sauce here and just assume everything's fine. I don't think that's the case at all. I think you use this, you show that this team is capable of these kinds of wins moving forward. And I think Otzelberger understands this as well. But from here, you got to keep raising the standard. You got to keep coming in every day, hitting those daily habits. Every single day is the exact same. Game day, non-game day, whatever. I really just attacking every single game, every day. I think that's what Otzelberger's program is built on, and that's what Iowa State needs to do. You can't just look at this and say, okay, we're good, back to how things were. That's the exact opposite of what we need to have happen here. So excited about this game, excited about Joshua Jefferson with his second, triple-double in a season. Ridiculous. Momcilovic had a great night, and obviously the whole team played well, major win. But now it's on to the next. We forget about this, put it in the rearview mirror, on to the next game. And I think Iowa State will do that, or at least I hope they will. What are your thoughts? Jimmie Rogers, the new schedule, and Iowa State winning UCF. Let me know in the comments below or at Nick_Marv on Twitter. I appreciate every single one of you guys for making this your first watch or listen. And hit subscribe down below. Completely free. Proves it's Cyclone State. The best thing you could ever possibly prove, in my opinion. That's going to do it for today. Until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.